Every Thursday evening for 2 years, a woman named Claudette Rivers in Memphis, Tennessee, called her son Michael's phone, let it ring 4 times, and hung up before the voicemail picked up. She had developed this as a system to avoid leaving messages that might seem desperate because she had promised herself, in the early weeks after the silence started, that she was not going to be the kind of mother who begged. She called 4 rings on Thursday. She texted on Sunday, 1 line, no questions, no pressure, thinking of you. Hope you're well. She never received a response. She kept calling. She kept texting. For 2 years, every Thursday, every Sunday, she reached into the silence and tried. On a Tuesday in February 2023, her son Michael called her. He needed $18,000. She did not have it. That was the first thing. But the second thing, the thing that sat with her longer than the lack of money, was that he had called her at 11 in the morning on a Tuesday after 2 years of silence, and the call lasted 4 minutes. And it began with, "Mom, I need something," and ended with, "I'll figure it out then." And she had sat with the phone in her hand for a long time after he hung up, listening to the specific quality of the quiet that follows a call like that. Her daughter Simone had not called. She had been silent for 2 years and remained silent. Her youngest, Brandon, had called once, 7 months into the silence, briefly, to say he was fine, and then had gone quiet again. She had 3 children. She had been raising them since their father left when Brandon was 6. She had worked 28 years as a licensed practical nurse to put all 3 of them through college. Michael was a software engineer. Simone was a marketing director. Brandon was finishing a graduate degree. All 3 of them were fine. They had decided, at some point, that Claudette had never been fully able to reconstruct, that they needed space from her. She did not know the exact reason, though she had her theories. There had been a disagreement at Simone's wedding in 2021. Something said between Claudette and Simone's mother-in-law at the reception, something that had escalated in the way these things escalate when 2 strong women are both convinced they are right. And then the silence had started and spread from Simone to Michael to Brandon, the way family dynamics spread, like weather, until Claudette was outside all 3 of them. She had apologized to Simone in writing 3 months in. She had apologized again in person the one time Simone agreed to meet. She had said she was sorry in every way she knew how to say it. The silence had continued. She had kept calling. 4 rings, every Thursday. Nobody in that studio knew that the woman with the warmest smile on the stage had been calling into a silence for 2 years. Claudette had applied to Family Feud with her friend group, 5 women who had known each other for 20 years, who met for dinner every other Friday, and had been trying to get Claudette out of her apartment more since the silence started. They had filled out the application as a group birthday surprise for Claudette and presented it to her at dinner, and she had laughed and said yes, and then gone home and sat in her quiet apartment and thought about all the phone calls she had made that no one had answered. The studio was loud and bright the way Family Feud studios are, and Claudette moved through it the way she moved through everything since the silence started. Present, warm, slightly careful about joy, the way people are careful about things that have been taken before. Steve Harvey got to her team and did his rounds and landed on Claudette and asked her what she did. She said, "Nurse, 28 years, recently retired." He asked what the hardest part of nursing was. She said, "Watching people go through things alone when they don't have to." Steve looked at her. "Are you going through something alone right now?" She had not planned to answer that question, but she had been answering questions from the careful distance of safety for 2 years, and something in the directness of the question, the unceremonious honesty of it, the way he asked it without flinching, something in that broke through. She told him about the Thursday calls, the 4 rings, the Sunday texts. 2 years. She told him about Michael's call in February and the 4 minutes and the $18,000. She told it without drama, without tears, with the same steady professional voice she had used for 28 years in emergency rooms. The voice of someone who has learned to report what is real without collapsing into it. She said, "I still call every Thursday. 4 rings. I don't stop." The studio fell completely silent. Steve Harvey had stopped moving. He stood very still at the podium with his cards in his hand, and he was completely quiet for 5 seconds, long enough for the audience to feel the weight of it. 4 rings, he said, every Thursday, for 2 years. "Yes," she said. He set the cards down. "Let me ask you something," he said. "Not for the show, for me. Why do you keep calling?" She looked at him. She said, "Because I am their mother, and mothers don't stop." The audience made a sound that was not applause and was not silence. It was something in between, a collective exhale, a sound of recognition, the sound of 300 people who had each, in some form, been on one side or the other of that sentence. Steve Harvey turned away from the cameras. He pressed his handkerchief to his eyes. He stood with his back to the audience for a long moment. The crew had stopped. The competing family, the Jefferson family from Nashville, were sitting very still. Their youngest member, a girl of about 12, watching Claudette with the intent focus of a child who was trying to understand something important. When Steve turned back, his voice was different. "I have to tell you something," he said. "There was a time in my life when I was in so dark a place that I wrote a letter to my family, a goodbye letter. I was going to mail it." He stopped. He breathed. "And I know what it means to be on the other end of silence, to reach and not be reached back. And I know what it means to finally hear from someone who didn't stop." He looked at Claudette. "You didn't stop. 40 years ago, if someone had been calling me every Thursday, 4 rings, it might have changed something. You are calling your children every Thursday because that is who you are. And I need them to know. Because they are watching this, I need them to know. Your mother did not stop." "Stop everything," Steve said. He was already moving. "We are stopping the game. I don't care about the format. This has never happened in the 45-year history of this show, and tonight it happens again." He walked to Claudette. He sat beside her at the front of the stage. He held the microphone between them and said, "I want you to do something right now, in front of everyone in this room. I want you to call Michael." The audience went completely still. Claudette looked at Steve. She pulled out her phone. She found Michael's number. Her hand was steady. She called. He answered on the second ring. The whole room heard it. Steve held the microphone toward the phone. Claudette said, "Michael, I'm on the Family Feud stage in Atlanta. Steve Harvey is sitting next to me. And I needed to tell you, in front of everyone, that I called every Thursday for 2 years. 4 rings. Because you are my son, and I am not going anywhere." The pause on the other end of the line lasted 9 seconds. The studio did not breathe. Michael said, "Mom." He said it the way a word is said when it has been held for too long. He said it the way a door opens. He said, I know, Mom." A crew member at the back of the stage was crying openly. The competing family's youngest daughter, the 12-year-old, had her hands pressed to her face. Steve held up his hand. There was more. He arranged, on the spot, for a family therapy intensive. All 3 children, Claudette, 10 sessions fully covered, through his foundation's counseling program. He then announced that both families would receive the full $25,000 prize because what had happened on that stage was not something that fit on a scoreboard. The Jefferson family's matriarch crossed the stage without being asked and held Claudette's hand. Steve Harvey looked at the camera, at the audience, at Claudette, and said 5 words. 4 rings. Every single Thursday. When the episode aired 8 weeks later, the 9 seconds of phone silence, the pause before Michael said "Mom," became the single most replayed moment of any Family Feud broadcast. It reached 380 million views in 11 days. The hashtag 4rings became a symbol in parenting, estrangement recovery, and mental health communities worldwide. Therapists made it the subject of workshops. Parent support groups adopted it as a symbol of not stopping. 3 months after the taping, Michael drove to Memphis. He brought Simone. Brandon flew in. They sat in Claudette's apartment for 6 hours. Claudette made the same dinner she had always made when all 3 of them were home. Nobody talked about the 2 years directly that first night. Nobody needed to. 6 months after the taping, Simone called her mother on a Thursday afternoon. Not because it was Thursday, because she wanted to. A year after the taping, the 4 Rings Initiative, established through Steve Harvey's foundation, provides estrangement recovery resources, family mediation, and counseling support for parents and adult children navigating long-term family silence. In its first year, the initiative served more than 900 families. Its symbol is a phone with 4 unanswered rings. Today, Claudette Rivers still calls her children on Thursdays. They answer now. She still sends the Sunday text, "Thinking of you. Hope you're well," and they respond. The Thursday calls last longer than 4 rings. Sometimes they last an hour. She says she does not resent the 2 years. She says she made her peace with those years somewhere around month 14 when she realized that the calling was not just for them. It was for her too. It was how she stayed a mother when motherhood was not being received. It was how she kept the door open when all 3 locks were turned. Mothers don't stop. That is what she said. That is what she meant. That is what she proved. If this story moved you, subscribe and hit that thumbs up. Share this with someone who needs to know they are not alone in reaching for someone who hasn't reached back yet. Have you ever loved someone across a silence and found your way through? Tell us in the comments. Ring that notification bell for more stories that remind us what endures.